Hello, everybody. Once again, I am Lehman Crafton Jr., aka Zorvalachan Less Than Guru, on day 29 of the Character Creation Challenge. And today I'm doing an interesting game called Zweihander, which is a German word basically meaning two-hander or two-handed, usually uh, references a great sword, a big two-handed German sword from the Middle Ages. So basically, this is an interesting book and a little history from what I've read on the internet and uh, kind of a vague description in the intro. So I could be wrong. This is what I've read. I haven't talked to the writer of the book, but it was basically, it says in the intro, 2011, the author started putting together notes and a wiki page basically of some house rules. And it doesn't state it, but it was basically a Warhammer, either first or second edition. Around that time, Fantasy Flight Games got a hold of the license to Warhammer and developed a game with mechanics that I've been told are similar, are the basic kind of beginning mechanics for the Fantasy Flight Star Wars games, such as Edge of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, and Force and Destiny, which are really good games. I've made two characters in two of those games so far, and we'll probably do another one either tomorrow or the next day to fill out all three of those games. But basically, a lot of people who really liked the original Warhammer rules did not like the Fantasy Flight games third edition because it was a completely different mechanics. And certain games have a mechanic flavor to it that is kind of associated with that game. And to try to take the IP and put another gaming system on it can be difficult. Now, something like Star Wars has gone through at least three mechanic systems of various stages. I liked D4. I didn't like D20. I really enjoy the Fantasy Flight. But things like Earth Dawn, first edition, second edition, and then at the same time they were having a third edition and classics, and now our fourth edition. Those are all really, really similar. You can kind of look at a first edition book and adventure, say, and you can play using fourth edition rules quite easily. It is kind of that same thing as like basic D&D and advanced D&D and even Palladium first edition, very, very, very close. So this was kind of a, I don't want to say a pushback, but a response to FFG's Warhammer 3rd edition saying, no, we want something that is still Warhammer in the mechanics, not just the setting. And they kind of did the opposite. They can't have the IP, so they have a different world, not just the old world of Warhammer, but it's kind of like explaining to a game master how to make their own grim and perilous world, a medieval-ish world that has elves. And I just read up elves, gnomes, halflings, dwarves, humans, and they even have ogres. They kind of look like orcs to me, but they're ogres. They have those. So this is an interesting thing. I'm not a lawyer, but I have written my own game, and I am pretty sure that there is a specific thing in copyright law that says that game rules cannot be copyrighted. And that's how you get all the different opolies based off of Monopoly, all the different cities like St. Louisopoly or things like that, because the rules themselves cannot be copyrighted. The IP, though, can be copyrighted. The names can be trademarked and things like that. So if you divorce the mechanics from all of the names and you don't cut and paste, because that's also, if you would cut and paste rules, that is not allowed. But if you keep the core mechanics and change things, change words, change the IP, then that is allowed. And that's why there were a lot of D&D type clones, which instead of saying strength, they might say might. Instead of saying intelligence, they might say smart, but they still had the same frame. So that's kind of how this book gets around it. And D&D being nice in third edition and having the open game license was just basically saying, oh, we realize that there's a law that we can't copyright this stuff, but we'll allow this little bit of using the same words. But I don't want to digress into that. Basically, what I want to say is this was developed by a person who had home rules, who wanted to keep the mechanics of Warhammer with that same system. Other people collaborated with him, and they got together play testing it, and over a series of years, he said it took him about 5 years to write, and I understand that. My own game took at least that much to get the rules down, and then writing it even took it longer. By the time this was published, which is a revised core rulebook, so it probably went through a Kickstarter, and then people hashed out rules and needed changes, because what you and your group and even a small playtest group figure out, once you release it to hundreds and thousands of people, then that's where mechanics are figured out, how they break and stuff like that. So it was revised. This was printed 2 years ago, in 2019, and that's about when I got this. I was looking to just read about Warhammer type things, and I want to say very soon after that this was published, Warhammer actually came out with a 4th edition that went back to those first and second edition rules. So now you have kind of 2 Warhammer rule sets that harken back to first and second edition, one being this Zweihander and another one being Warhammer 4th edition, which I do not have. I was able to get this on a really good deal. It's a thick book. Look at this. This is a huge, modern, thick book. It lists for $65 retail. I can't remember what I got it for, but it was at a deep discount. I was happy. It seemed to hold up good, although just the sheer weight of it, it is textbook. This is like not quite as big as, say, a Campbell Biology, but it is still big. The binding looks pretty good, and it has a nice ribbon. I love games now that have at least one ribbon bookmark attached to it, so I can keep my place without using index cards or whatever bookmark type thing I get lying around. The character sheet, on DriveThruRPG, they have character sheets that you can download. This one is the same one in the back of the book. They also have 2 newer versions, which have a lot more fluff on the front page. So that's why I went ahead and did the original one that comes with the book, and not one of the second or third version. There's just a lot of fluff, and I don't do fluff in my character creation videos, so I decided to do this one. There's things that when I read, I found interesting, and that I think did a good job, but you have to be, there's a couple things if you want to play this game, and if you will enjoy this, that I will give my opinion on before I make the character, because I have been giving kind of my opinions and stuff. It's not just make a character, it is a why I like this game, why I don't like this game. Warhammer, first, second, this Zweihander offshoot, and probably the 4th edition are percentile based. So you roll a percentile. Now, it has good and bad parts to that, and I've experienced that myself, because the game that I wrote, Dunamis, was a percentile, or is. It's still being sold on DriveThruRPG. As well as this, if you want a PDF version, it's on DriveThruRPG as well. But with percentile-based systems, you're able to minutely adjust things. So you can adjust something like 3 percentage points instead of just adding a 1 or subtracting a 1, and that being 5 whole percentages on, say, the D20. Now, it has benefits and bad things. You can get more precise with it, but some people say, well, why do I have to get so minute? Each one of these faces is 5%, a difference. A 7 would be 7 times 5, which would be a 30. You have a 30% chance of rolling that or less for a 7. Whereas the percentile, you roll 2 dice, and again, let's have the black be the 10s and the blue be the 1s. You have 20. Well, you get a lot more variation, but is that variation needed? And when you start working with higher and more diverse numbers, 62, rolling this and getting a number between 1 and 20 is simple. But there's games that have criticals on 20s. Most games do. 5% of the time you're going to crit, and then a lot of people like having a 1 be some crazy mishap. And do you really want 5% of the time a soldier, a person trained in combat, 5% of the time they're stumbling, dropping their sword, hitting their friends, etc. Where if you put that type of place into this, you can adjust it more minutely. You could have it that it only is a crit on a, if it's a, that shows a 10, so say a 0, 1. Or maybe we should do it the other way because this one has a 0. Or if you get 100, then you get that. So you can make the range a little more varied. But whenever you have percentile systems and you start adding and subtracting percents, it just seems a little bit more difficult to some people than just adding or subtracting a smaller number. Especially if you have, say, a 78 and you're subtracting a 13 or adding a 13. It's a lot different than you have a 14 and you're adding a 2 or subtracting 2, that type of thing. But that is kind of one of those, if you want to go percentile, this is a good thing. If you don't like percentile, it might not be a game for you. One thing I do like that they did, and they actually put it on the character sheet, which I'm very happy because otherwise people will forget it, is they have a difficulty rating chart. So you can get pluses or bonuses to your base value, not the roll, but to the base value. If something is just trivial, say that you had a 30% in it, well, now you got a 60% because that's a plus 30 if it's easy. And I'll just do an example on some of these. If your base skill is 30%, so if it's a trivial, you now have a 60%. If it's routine, you have a 40%. Standard, you just got your 30. And then if things get all the way to arduous, you have a 0% chance. You are just not good enough to do that. And that's kind of a cool thing. And I think they put it on the different pages of the character sheet too. So it doesn't matter what sheet you're using, you have that. Now this isn't about combat or doing skills, so they don't have it on that. But the ones that they have it on, it's good. I do like that very, 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 very much. The character sheet that I use for my own game, Dunamis, I try to do charts and stuff the same way because it was a percentile dice system. And when you have percentile dice systems, they can be more complicated. And that's not complex is not necessarily a bad thing, and it's not necessarily a good thing. Different people have different views. One of the things that I felt when I read this, I liked it. I really got that sense of Warhammer. I got that sense of being updated. But if you looked at the Warhammer 2nd edition rules, it was about that thick. And then when you added the companion rules to it, it was about that big. This is a lot bigger. There are lots and lots of corner cases in this book. So if you like options, this is good. If you want things to be more simple and not forgetting options, then you might want to look at one of the earlier Warhammer, probably Warhammer 2nd edition. But this is a very cool game. The writing didn't set me off as some games until I started trying to read. They have a sample adventure, and I was confused of what was happening in the adventure. had to read things 2 or 3 times. It kind of jumped around a little bit, which I understand as a writer. Sometimes you write something, then you start something else, and then you're like, oh wait, I have to reference that first thing again, and your writing can kind of get a little convoluted. But just be careful if you're reading this. You might have to read something and then back off. And I will give, even though this is a really nice, I mean, this is a nice printed book. It won an Ennies Award for 2018. That's probably before the revised edition came out. And this is 2019 because you can see look to the copyright page here, 2019. So it won the 2018 Ennie Awards. Andrews McNeil Publishing did it, but from what I understand, this was play tested by a group of people, kickstarted, but it is more of an indie game. It's not a Wizards of the Coast. It's not even a Ulysses Spiel or Palladium type thing, which Palladium's more of one person doing things, but it's been around, whether you like them or not. It's been around for a long time, or Steve Jackson's games, stuff like that. This is basically a person, and the fact that they were able to get it into a physical book like this, get a Kickstarter, win awards, is extremely, what do I want to say? It's extremely impressive. So I'll give this a little more slack than, say, yesterday when I went to Star Trek. Star Trek is a big IP. That company, even though it was bought out by Wizards of the Coast, probably wasn't a small company, even though I didn't recognize some of their other games, but they had to pay money to get that license. They were doing something. So I won't say they were more professional. This looks very, very professional. It's well written. The pages are mostly black and white with these kind of like a light brown shade in it, but it's a good quality paper. It's a glossy paper, and the artwork is very similar, not the same, but similar to the older Warhammer editions that this is based off of. So I will be a little harsher on games like that Star Trek than this, because there's different ways that they came through it. But I will say that this is a game that I might game master and might play, but I don't know if I would like this better than second edition. Or I don't know, I haven't read fourth edition Warhammer, so I don't know if I would like that better. But it is close enough that I think I could easily slip into playing this or game mastering this, or at least use one with the other. And that's always good when you find the system that you like, but use the other one to mine for ideas. So I've gone 20 minutes already in my little opening, but I just felt that this is more of an indie game than any of the other ones that I've done besides my own game. But everything else is by an actual RPG company that was a company that wrote games instead of a person who wrote a game, and that gave them or made them, they then had to make a company, which I understand how that goes, being my own, doing a self-published or through drive-through RPG. So I want to say the table of contents is awesome. A lot of people love indexes. More than indexes, I love a good table of content. If I can get to a table of contents and I can just see this big thing here, chapter 1, introduction, boom, it starts here. Chapter 2, and then I have a nice breakdown, how to play. Sometimes I like this better than an index because I might not know what word they're looking for. I might not know if that's in there. If I go here, this says professions. Now I know where to go to look for profession. I forget what they're called. I can just look, and in the big bold, it says professions. Oh, that's what the character classes are called, because I was trying to find character class or something like that in the back of the book. So that's really cool and easy, so I can go to 27. And it's a pretty long one, including appendix. So it's really, really nice. Character creation. So here, I wanted to show this. Swindler, brute, outsider, charlatan, gimp. And if you look, their shadows look different than they do, which is kind of a. This is a grim and perilous. This is a deadly world. It's not a nice heroic world. Chaos is involved, very similar to Warhammer and things like that. So the first thing they have is they have their statistics, which it looks like they took the weapon skill and the range. I think it was ballistic skill, and they combined them into combat. So that is a slimming down. They've expanded on certain things, but then they slim down on other things. And in this, all your attributes, and it seems like all of them, no matter what your race was. So instead of looking at that chart and finding your race and then going down and rolling d10s and adding to usually 2d10 added to 20 to find that base value. In the second edition, I just checked that to make sure, because when I read how you do primary, I thought, this is different than Warhammer. It's still percentile base, but it says assigning, where is it? Primary attributes. Dice. Okay, I'm trying to find out where Okay, so here it is, the grim and perilous method. Here it's just talking about, normally you just go down the line, and that's how I've been doing it, but they say if you have a nice game master, merciful game masters may allow you to assign your dice rolls at your discretion, so that you may min-max primary attributes. However, this does not capture the spirit of Zweihander, and we urge careful thought before considering. So they're saying this is a grim and perilous world. This is not a heroic world. So just roll your dice and let fate decide what you might be. But if you're really against that, we allow the game master to change that. And that's something that I actually appreciate. I like being able to change my games. I usually don't think that the game has to say so, but a lot of people believe that if it's not in the game book, it's not allowed. They like throwing around canon when in old D&D there was you rolled your 3d6 and that's what you kept. Beck Me, as I saw, they let a little bit of manipulations, but a lot of game masters just did a roll 4d6, drop the lowest one, or arranging them how you want to, and they did all types of stuff themselves. So this is actually putting it in the book. Here's something that you can do. We don't suggest it, but we allow it. That means that this person is confident in their method, but understanding that their method isn't always good for every table. I really appreciate that as both a game, or it's not even both, there's three things. As a player, as a game master, and as a game designer, all that hits all my buttons. But we'll go ahead and we do 3d10 and add it to 25, which is higher than Warhammer 2nd. Warhammer 2nd for humans, you rolled, I believe it was 2d10 and added it to 20, or maybe it was 3d10, but I think it was 2d10 and add to 20. So you probably will get, but not necessarily get a higher range, which is somewhat good, because I do remember playing Warhammer, and when you first start off, before you get a lot of things, you missed a lot. You were good if you had like a 36% chance. So this one's going to be a minimum of 28 with a possibility of 55%. So let's go ahead and roll some dice. I'll just do two of these blue ones. I still need to find the dice that my cat's absconded with. few of those have been missing. But, let's go ahead and I'll just kind of go down. So for combat, 14 plus 25. And again, now if you're not used to doing math in your head, it's not quite as easy as a 12 plus 1. This is adding a 25 to 14, which isn't terrible. It's 39, but it is just a little bit different. Oh, saved it. So 25 plus 5 is 30. Not horrible in combat, not pretty good in brawn. 12, which would be 37. 12, a different way, but to get the same 37. 14 is another 39. Willpower is 17. So that 42. And 8 would be a 33. So all in the 30s. Low being brawn of except willpower. Low of brawn 30, high of willpower 42, a couple of 39s combat and intelligence. So I am not that upset by those. Now in this game, you do something is you have a bonus. So combat gets a combat bonus. Brawn gets a brawn bonus. Agility bonus, and they have those kind of listed in there. And what that is divide by 10, round down. So basically, it's you just take the first the tens digit. So 3 3 3 3 3 4 3. So very easy. 3 3 3 3 3 4 3. So now, here, if you want, you can roll the D100 and do your ancestry to find out which race you are. And something that I found was interesting is they give various things that each race can do, but not all races do everything. So not all elves see in the dark. Not all. It says like not every dwarf is a good craftsman. You might be, but you might not. And I find that diversity is kind of interesting, and it's something that each race rolls on and gets something that makes them unique, even amongst the others of their race. All the ancestries, and that's basically what they call races. All ancestry modifiers, they adjust the bonus, not the this attribute itself. And they all do 3 get a +1 and 3 get a -1, including humans, which I found interesting. So humans aren't like a base of 0. So I guess if we're rolling, I've been rolling. So actually, I'm going to do a blue and a red because the black having the 10 was a little different. So I will say that the red is the 10s, the blue is the 1s digit. So 100. So that was neat. So I'm an ogre, which I've never think I've ever played an ogre. So here I can write down my name. That's probably they don't have a player name, so I will write my name over here. I will be male, or I think you can choose ancestry as an ogre. So that will be interesting. They also kind of have an alignment thing that you can lose or gain and go either towards order or chaos, which is interesting. So I'm an ogre, so I go to the ogre. So see, just to show you, humans, they get modifiers +1s, and then they even get a special ancestral trait in your roll, and you get 1. And again, not every human is the same. We will go to. I find their gnomes funny. They're not gnomes are not the happy little gnome short dwarves with less beards. They are really evil looking creatures. And they even say that the first word describing gnomes is gruesome. Gruesome in appearance and short tempered in their behavior. So these are not like your typical gnomes. Your halflings are your typical halfling, hairy feet, stuff. But here's the ogres. When I first saw the ogres, I thought they were orcs. That's what they kind of looked to me, but they're ogres. So fluff about the ogres, and then racial modifiers. So ogre racial modifiers get theirs is different. They get 1 at +2 and 1 at -2, and then 1 at +1 and 1 at -1. So a lot of the other ones have 3 different ones at +1 and 3 different ones at -1s, but this has a +1, +2, and 1 -2. So it's still the same overall, but they weigh into things differently. So the BB, the brawn bonus is 2 higher, so that goes up to 5. And my CB, which is the combat bonus, goes up by 1, so that's a 4. Now my AB, which is my agility, that goes down 2, so that 3 becomes a 1. And my PB, which is perception bonus, goes down by 1, so that is a 2. So if I go, I think I can probably write those darker because they write it in there so to be able to see. So currently my combat is a 4, bonus to bronze is a 5, agility is 1, perception 2, intelligence 2, willpower 4, and 3. So my agility actually, if I would have rolled really low on my dice and got, say, a 29 or less, and that would have been a 2, that bonus would have been a 0. So that's probably why they add the 25. I guess they could have added it as 20, but. And then I get to roll a D100 and figure out what thing I get. So again, the red will be the tens and the blue will be the ones. So 39. See that 39. 39 is a gut plate. Gut plate. You got hunger pains, cruising for a bruising, frightening bellow, slam dance, but gut plate. I need to figure out what that thing is. So here is all the traits, kind of what they do. So gut plate, your great belly is covered in an outer carapace of bones and muscles. Unfortunately, it makes for an easy target. Fortunately, it protects you from most blows. Whenever unarmored, add a +2 to your damage threshold as if you were wearing a suit of leather armor. You also gain the benefits of natural quality in these cases, which I'm not sure what they are, but I'm sure it might be something to do with stacking or not stacking, or some things go against everything unless it's natural or something like that. So basically, I got a tough tummy. So that is interesting. Yeah, they have different types of things. Apparently, odd couples they like halflings, so they fight better with halflings. Cast iron stomachs, different things like that. So, um, gut plate is my what do they call it? Ancestral trait. So there's a thing of traits. Now, I do want to say that this is an official character sheet. I don't really like when they don't have lines for me to write on. My handwriting is sloppy, and writing straight without a line can be somewhat difficult. You've been watching me write these character sheets, you probably know, but I'll just write gut plate. If I was actually playing the character, I would probably take that whole thing or summarize it in some manner here, but I'll just write down gut plate and move on. So now it says randomly generate your archetype by rolling a d100, consulting the table below. Once determined, you will then reference the archetype table to record your starting trappings. Once this is done, determine your first profession by rolling a d100 and consulting the table below. Now, I am for rolling on charts. I've been doing that ever since my gaming career. It doesn't really bother me too much. The thing that does in this case is because even the general one. So you could be really low. I'm actually not that bad. My combat and intelligence base before my bonuses got adjusted were the same. But if I would have rolled low for intelligence, I wouldn't have felt that I could be a successful academic. So that is something that I'm not quite sure um, about. But again, they've already stated once. They don't say here, but they stated once. Go ahead and if the game master is merciful, they can allow you to change something. But so we'll see what I am. Again, I'll use the two here, and that is a 63. And if I look here, 63 is a ranger. So my ogre is a ranger. So I'm glad they have combat and not combat and ballistics or combat and ranged because that would have been an extra chance of not doing good. And I did decently. So my, I guess I would write them under. They don't give me much room here for profession. And that's okay. Profession is a ranger. And I guess actually it would be something a ranger slash something. So let me move a ranger, and then my profession will actually be something else. I will go to the ranger. You have academic, commoner, knave, ranger, socialite. Very social person here. Warrior. So I am a ranger. So some pretty decent artwork. I like that. Black and white, but it's gets its point across, and it's not bad at all. So my trappings would be animal bane. It says 3 of them, so I'm assuming that's some type of potion. Anti venom back. That's kind of interesting. Some things that normal games would not start you off with. Very specific. You get an anti venom. You get 3 potions of some type of animal bane. A backpack, a bullwhip, heavy boots, holy symbol, suit of fur or hide armor, survival kit, torches 3, traveling coals, water skin, wilderness cloak, wolfsbane, and then you choose one of a fire hardened spear or a hunting bow with arrows and quiver or a woodsman's axe. Being an ogre, I would probably pick the spear, a little more primitive. Um, and I just think it would look cool. The woodsman axe I would probably pick if I would have rolled a human or an elf or something, but just having a big spear that you hold sounds pretty cool. So that's what I would pick. I'm not going to write that stuff down because that's just equipment, but it's listed all right here, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that. They give you some things that normally in normal games you wouldn't start off with some specific things. Um, Like the socialite starts with a coin purse, fancy shoes, mandrake root. So they actually get something. Knuckle dusters, and then they get to choose some things. So a crossbow with bolts, or this or that. Tinctures 3. Laudanum, which I guess is another type of potion or salve or something like that, something that consumable, with 3. So that is really interesting that they have these things that all the character professions start off with. But let's go ahead and I roll my another D100 to determine what type of profession I have, and that's a 90. See that? 9 and 0, and a 90 on the chart is a slayer. I wonder if that harkens back to the giant slayers or the dragons. I guess they started off with giant slayers and then could become like dragon slayer, troll slayers, giant slayers, dragon slayers. I believe is how it went in Warhammer. So that is interesting. A slayer is a ranger type class, I guess, because you're going out and hunting monsters in the wilderness. Now, it doesn't tell me where those are, but I'm sure they're in some type of alphabetical order, either by um, archetype and then profession, or simply by profession. But we'll find that out. So I will just write Slayer. And that's everything. Everything is right there. I really like this. This is 2 easy templates that made sense to me. Um, Even though the ancestor one, the race one, wasn't normal what you would see in the Warhammer. It was easy to just read that. Boom, you have a table, roll on the table, get your thing, move on. So that is kind of a nice thing. They have secondary attributes, which are things like peril threshold, which I think is mind, um, damage threshold, which is kind of like hit points or wound categories, things like that, encumbrance limit, initiative, how to all movement. So all of that gets kind of set up that I'm not going to roll, but that would be derived things to figure out how you're going your numbers for combat and stuff like that. So, but they do have seasons of birth, and this is kind of you have a dooming, and then you roll a d100, and then I guess you have some type of dooming. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter, and then depending on what you have a chart to roll on. So it just has like pride comes before the fall, or over here, beware a lover scorned, things like that, which are kind of just interesting. The other character sheets, the other versions had those listed. But again, I use this one because these are role playing things for actually playing the game that I'm not really um, age group. So you can determine your age group: young adult, middle age, or elderly. And basically says it doesn't change any of your attributes or anything. You just young adult, middle aged, elderly. And they do give an effect though. Young don't have any distinguishing marks. Adult, you have to roll once on distinguishing marks. Middle age, you roll twice on distinguishing marks. And elderly, you roll 3 times. So basically, you've lived a life. So you might have some scar, or you might have a broke nose, or things like that. So you have beady eyes, big ears, bloodshot eyes, bow-legged walks, and just broken nose. So things like that. So I'm not gonna draw on that, but that is interesting things that kind of fill out your character. They just there's 100 different ones. So you roll a d100, and each value gets something different. And you can go complexion, build type, height and weight. They have tables for everything, male and female, of all of it. That's one thing that I've played games and I've enjoyed games like Adventure Quest was a game that gave you things like this, which you rolled on various tables to get everything. And other games you just choose. Um, I personally like the idea of games that if you want to go, you can roll everything, but if you and the game master decide to just pick one of these, that's fine with me as well. So just kind of how much randomness do you want? But then hair color and eye color. And I will say, in my first Dunamis, I did have these types of charts for figuring out formulas for figuring out your height and your weight and hair color, fur color, and eye color and scale color and things like that. The way that I'm rewriting it, I'm not. I'm letting it up to people. I'm giving a range, and then you pick within a range. So I can see both. It's just if you want to get into a detailed game, which a percentile minutia game seems to be more detailed, that's great. If you're looking for something more streamlined, just pick. So not saying it's good or bad, just showing you that those are things that are in here. And then upbringing, cultured, forgotten, militant, scholastic, all those types of things. Languages, drawbacks. So must you get a drawback? Just as some players like to determine characters failing as they play through the game using improv methods to let their character's history come to light. Others may prefer to have distinct pieces of their character's life already fleshed out. A drawback tells something unique. While you're not required to select a drawback, you may optionally select one in return for one additional fate point at the end of character creation. You may be encouraged. However, you can never gain more than one due to this. So that's interesting. If you want an additional fate point, you can draw one of these drawbacks. You'd be a bleeder. You roll randomly. Um, and on this one, I personally, as a game master, if I decided to do this, I would require the roll to keep the min maxers. If you want that extra fate point, which is something that could save your life, I'm not going to let you to go and go, oh, okay, I think that I'm a combat person, so I don't want bleeder, or I'm an academic, I don't plan being in melee, so bleeder would be fine. I'm going to pick that, or I'm not going to pick that. It's a you roll, and that is what you are. That is your drawback. That's interesting. Order alignment, chaos alignment. Alignment's generally treated as a pairing of two distinct but similar personality traits. So yes, here's interesting. Order alignment. You have pride on one side and arrogance on the other side, or wit against scorn. Being able to adaptation versus mayhem. So that is really interesting. Do you roll one on each, or okay. So the base rule is you roll once, and then that gives you the order and the chaos. But if you want to be completely crazy, it does give you an alternate to roll on both. I like the idea of the thing that is a virtue also can be a vice, depending on how it's looked at and what the situation is. That is kind of intriguing to me. So I'm just going to roll once, and I got an 18. So if I look down here, an 18 is compassion and melancholy. And then I guess you do things and that can get you around the scale, and you have corruption. No, we still haven't got to the Slayer part. And then they kind of go through some of those here. So Trying to see what is early in the list. Okay. Compassions and melancholy. Order. You empathize with those struggles of others and offer your personal strength to those who lack it, defending any cause that you determine pure and just. You will inspire others to proudly rise up, and wise parents will offer you an example to their children to help them sleep at night. Chaos is your empathy for the pain of others affects you too deeply, clouding your focus and weakening your resolve. Your depression may manifest in many forms, from general social withdrawal to crippling anxiety to dangerous indecisiveness. So basically, this character would be one that is very compassionate, always trying to help other people, can empathize with others, but because this is a grim and dark, a grim and perilous world, bad things happen to good people, and that depresses you. So that's kind of a cool thing. I kind of like that. Um, you're talking about changing alignment, tapping into alignment, and that's that chart. I'm not going to go into detail. I'm trying to get to the profession. So here's the profession. So let's see if they start off with academics or if they just do all professions in alphabetical order. So the professions, and I was a slayer. It looks like they go. Okay, so these are kind of different. So it looks like they go in just complete alphabetical order. So that is not bad. I will go till I get to Slayer. That's H's. Scribe. I'm getting there. Slayer. So yeah, this kind of does look like it's like a human version of the Slayer you might see in Warhammer, where the mohawk, the beard, although they do have kind of wearing a skull, an actual skull mask over their own face. So that is what the Slayer is. So looking at the Slayer, there are things, so fluff, 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 fluff. It is that where you have a death wish, but you're not just going to lay down and die. You want to die gloriously. You want to die actually facing a a monster. So the world is a dark place filled with loathsome abomination. When these fiends appear, the terrified populace calls upon madmen known as slayers to kill them. They are foe hammer to such beasts, attacking with relentless furor. And that kind of makes sense. I empathize with people. So if the monsters are hurting them, and I'm an ogre, the monsters are hurting people. I empathize, even as an ogre, I empathize with that. And I'm big and I'm strong and I'm an ogre. So I want to kill that thing. And when I can't, or when a person dies before I can get there, then I get all melancholy and depressed. So that is actually kind of fits together. And that's cool that you can kind of weave that. Drawback, Death Witch. Unfortunately, the path of the Slayer is difficult one. Effect, in order to follow the Slayer's path, you can never wear armor as it violates this tenet. Should you don armor, you do not gain the benefits of any professional trait, Slayer or otherwise, that you possess. Now, that is actually not too bad because I have that gut plate that my stomach counts as a +2 armor. So that serendipitously takes effect. And then you have ranks, I guess, skill ranks, coordination, bonus advances. I'm not quite sure how that works. I might need to go back and see how professions, your individual in what I want to say in Warhammer, they give you just a list of skills that you get. Skill rank, simple melee, talents. I'm not sure if you get one of those or if you get most of those. Basic tier. Okay, so and this is one of the things I find funny. They give you a certain amount of, they call them reward points. They're like experience points. And first, they say you must immediately pay 100 to become a Slayer. Well, if you have to spend 100 to be that thing, why don't they just say choose a Slayer and you start with this amount of reward points and it's actually 100 less? I always find that kind of interesting. If you are a starting character in basic, you gain one iconic trapping for your profession. It says work with your game master to find a suitable piece of equipment selected. So I had a spear, so maybe I would choose something else to hunt or slay monsters. Spend the remaining RP reward points. You should have 900 reward points remaining. So they gave you 1,000. You immediately have to spend 100. So why they don't just say, here's your profession, now have 900, I don't understand. But each advances cost 100 reward points. You may purchase these in any order you desire. Your new profession has several skills. You must spend reward points to purchase all 10 of these skills. Once purchased, you automatically gain a skill rank, apprentice in these skills. That grants a plus 10 base chance to use that skill. Mark the ovals for each skill rank on the front of the character. You get bonus advances. It's 1 to the primary attribute bonus. Then after spending all 1,000 reward points, of which 100 you already have to spend just to have a profession, so why do we have 1,000 and not 900? Don't know. Notice that once you have purchased the profession trait, 10 skill ranks, 7 bonus advances, and 3 talents for your first profession, you are almost ready to move into the intermediate tier. So basically, you have to have purchased all of these to go into an intermediate tier, but you get 900 points, reward points. Now, I understand that they're doing reward points, and that's probably what you get later, but why they can't just start you off with, say, beginning character points and give you 9 of them and say pick 9 of these things? To me, that would make it easier than saying you get 1,000. 100's already knocked off. You get 900, and each one of these costs 100. But that is just something that I understand how to do it. It's not messing me up. I just see how it could be vastly simplified by having character creation have different terminology than other things. And if this is something that it takes 100 points, how many points do you get per adventure? If you get 100, you could have each one of these be 1 point and give 1 point per adventure. Or if you get, say, 10 points per adventure, you could say make each one of these 10 points or something less than 100. But maybe they're trying to use similar numbers to how Warhammer did. But that's just something that I'm thinking about. So I can get a skill rank in athletics, coordination, folklore, intimidate, martial melee, resolve, runner, simple melee, survival, toughness. So those are skill ranks. All right. So I can get one less than half of the things. So let me just get the 2 martials, simple melee and martial melee. So I will put here. And I'm guessing, but I don't know, but I'm guessing since there are 3, there's probably, this is the basic tier, this would be an intermediate tier, and this would be like advanced or expert, whatever they call that. So that's how you gain things would be my guess. So I got 2 toughness. That might be handy. So that's 3. And again, in my head, I'm calculating I have 9 things to buy. So I'm not looking at it as I have 900 points to spend and subtracting 100 points each time. I got 9 things. That's the way my mind kind of works. So I want to get that bonus advanced in, I can get 2 in BB. So my brawn can actually go twice. So that is interesting. Same with the combat. Same with the perception, which is lower. So let me go ahead and I want to get that combat up. I got 1, 2, 3. So I get 6 more. So combat goes up 2. That's 4. Brawn, let me go ahead and do that. I'm a big ogre slayer. So now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got 2 more things. I might get the perception up just so that it's not a 2, it's what I started with, and then that would leave me 1 point or 100 RP. And let's see what these things I can get: ambidextrous, bad axe, and die hard, which are talents. Um, Let me make it the Slayer, and I don't know what these are. I haven't read them. If I was actually playing this, I would read those. But I want to be ironic. I'm a Slayer. I want to die in depth, but I want it to be valiant. I want it to be for a reason. I don't just want to die. So I'm going to be Die Hard, and that is called a talent. So again, big, long, blank face for talents. Die Hard. So that actually wasn't too bad. I had read it instead of just grabbing here. I would have been able to easily find that listed before the charts. That told me what to do, and it basically was easy. Although my mind broke it down differently. Instead of saying I have 1,000 points, I'm a Slayer, so now I'm 900, and then each one of these costs 100. I just go, I have 9 things to pick out of this. So all of these professions. After I get all of those, I could move on. Uh, let's see what they. I wish here it would have it if they were the what I want to call it, the intermediate professions. And I get to C, so I must be coming across. Okay, Watchmen. So I wish there would have been a more break, or if they would have written advanced professions here. But here's our break. So let's see with the. Let me see if they have an extra type of Slayer. War Dervish or something. I don't know. And I don't think any of these had a place of what you could go into. But then you'd pick an intermediate, and then let's see if I was right about it possibly being a advanced. G's. Oh no, that's War Dervish. So, I don't know what that third one is, unless you can do 2 of them for those skill ranks. But then skills and how everything there gets talked about. They go into really big details on um, that percentage things of what these type of tasks would be, the difficulty. They break up each one. So there's nice examples. I like that, but it does mean that there's more reading and maybe remembering involved. Your trappings, which are your equipment and how things are broken down. Then later they get into the magic and they have a nice bestiary and things like that. So the character pretty much is made how I've been making all of them. Um, Everything did. It went really smooth together. I think it probably even went smoother in character concept with more stages than a Warhammer Second did. Now, I'm not saying I'd prefer this as a game above Warhammer. You might not roll percentile. You have this being percentile, but then you get these bonuses here. So I'm not sure if you roll something else. No, it has percentile here, so I'm not sure what that bonus thing is. But that would be something that I have to figure out when if I'd actually play this game. But everything fit out. The mechanics are there. It was easy to understand. Um, don't have complaints in any of that. My ogre slayer makes sense. Even the little gut plate thing that I randomly rolled makes sense. So I kind of like that. So I'll come up with a name for my ogre. He's going to be Ugg the ogre. He's just a slayer. And you're going to be about an hour and 10 minutes. I did a long intro, but this being more of an independent type game, I felt that that was worth it. Again, this is a game that I'm not sure if I'd game master, but I probably would play. I'd have to reread the rules and make sure that I understood everything. But it's simple enough. The logic there is not like the one that I did yesterday, where you had 6 layers of stuff that some of them gave a lot and some gave a little, and you're wondering how things work. This was a simple roll your stats, adjust roll your race, adjust it by your ancestry, adjust it by that. Then here's your profession, pick some stuff, figure out the rules for all that stuff you picked, and play. So I'll just say that. So if you like the video, go ahead and hit like. If you dislike, you can hit dislike. If you want to subscribe, please join me here on the Less Than Guru channel. And I guess until next time, which would be tomorrow, this is Lehman Crafton Jr., aka Zorvalchad, Less Than Guru, and I will catch you later.